Do you know the richest man who ever lived didn't inherit his wealth, didn't win the lottery, and never touched a stock? He built a $2 trillion empire from the ground up using 7 secrets the Bible laid out thousands of years ago. And what's wild is that these same secrets work today, but almost no one is using them. Most people think wealth is about working harder, grinding longer hours, hustling until you collapse. But King Solomon proved that's a lie. He built his empire on wisdom, not hustle, strategic thinking, not brute force. And by the end of this video, you're going to see exactly how he did it, including the one mistake that destroyed everything he built. Here's what's crazy. Solomon didn't start rich. His father David was a shepherd turned warrior king, and when Solomon inherited the throne, he inherited problems. Massive debt from wars, political enemies everywhere, a broke and unstable nation. The kingdom was hanging by a thread. But within 40 years, Solomon turned Israel into the wealthiest kingdom on earth. His annual income was over 25 tons of gold, about $2 trillion in today's money. And he didn't do it by accident. He followed a blueprint that the Bible recorded. I'm going to break down that blueprint into 7 secrets. These aren't random tips. They're principles that transformed a struggling kingdom into an economic superpower. And if you apply them, they'll transform your financial life too. But here's the thing. Solomon also made one catastrophic mistake that cost him everything. And that mistake is the same one destroying your finances right now without you even knowing it. I'll reveal what that mistake is in secret number 7. These 7 secrets work because they're timeless principles that work in any economy, any era. Whether you're building a business, climbing the corporate ladder, or trying to get out of debt, these principles will accelerate your progress. But you have to apply them in order. Skip 1, and the structure weakens. Let's start with secret number 1. Solomon asked for the one thing most people ignore: wisdom. 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 9. Solomon prayed, "Give me an understanding heart to judge your people, that I may discern between good and evil." He could have asked God for money. He could have asked for military power, but he asked for wisdom. And because he did, God gave him everything else. Wealth is not about how much you make. It's about how much you know. Look at lottery winners. 70% go broke within 5 years because they got money without wisdom. The Bible says in Proverbs 24, verse 3 and 4, "Through wisdom a house is built, and by understanding it is established. By knowledge the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches." Wisdom first, then riches. Solomon studied everything. He wrote 3,000 proverbs and over 1,000 songs. He was an expert in botany, zoology, and engineering. He surrounded himself with advisors. He combined divine wisdom with relentless study. And here's what's crazy. First, Kings 4, verse 34 says kings from every nation came to listen to Solomon's wisdom. World leaders traveled hundreds of miles on foot just to hear this man speak. That's the power of wisdom. It makes you magnetic. Most people want results, but won't invest in knowledge. They'll spend $500 on shoes, but won't spend $50 on a book that could change their financial future. They'll scroll social media for hours, but won't spend 30 minutes learning how money works. Proverbs 4, verse 7 says, "Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom." Not money first. Wisdom first, because wisdom creates wealth. Lack of wisdom destroys it. Picture 2 young men, both 25, both make $40,000 a year. The first spends evenings on Netflix and Instagram. The second reads 1 hour nightly on business, investing, and negotiation. 10 years later, the first still makes $40,000, broke, complaining about his job. The second negotiated his way to 6 figures, started a side business, built an investment portfolio, and has options. Same starting point, different wisdom, completely different outcome. When was the last time you invested in learning? Not just consuming content, but actually studying principles that build wealth. If you can't answer that, you're already behind. The market doesn't reward ignorance, it punishes it. Solomon knew that every decision he made would either multiply or destroy his resources. So he invested in wisdom first. He studied, he sought counsel, he learned continuously, and that commitment to wisdom is what separated him from every other king of his era. But here's what's haunting. Solomon spent his youth seeking wisdom and became the wisest man alive. Yet decades later, he made one decision, proving wisdom alone isn't enough if you ignore secret number 7. Keep that in mind. Solomon did something else that separated him from everyone. Secret number 2. He built systems, not monuments. Most kings built statues. Solomon built infrastructure that generated wealth continuously. 1 Kings chapter 10 tells us Solomon had a fleet of ships bringing gold, silver, ivory, and exotic goods every 3 years. He established trade routes. He built partnerships. He turned Israel into a trading hub connecting Africa, Asia, and Europe. He had mining operations in Etzion-Geber, extracting copper and iron, agricultural systems producing wheat and oil, a merchant fleet partnering with King Hiram of Tyre. He controlled land routes between Egypt and Mesopotamia, taxing every caravan. 2 Chronicles 9, verse 14, says all the kings of Arabia and governors brought gold and silver to Solomon. He wasn't chasing money. Money chased him. Why? He controlled the trade routes. Every merchant traveling from Africa to Asia passed through Israel. It's like owning the toll booth on the only highway between two continents. Solomon's systems worked whether he was awake or asleep. While he judged cases, ships sailed to Ophir bringing gold. While he wrote Proverbs, miners extracted copper. That's the power of systems. They multiply your time. But systems alone aren't enough. Solomon made one ruthless decision in secret number 5 about who he allowed near those systems. That decision protected everything from sabotage. Wealth is not about one big payday. It's about building systems that produce income repeatedly. Solomon diversified across agriculture, mining, trading, and real estate. Multiple streams of income flowing into one treasury. The Bible says in Ecclesiastes 11 verse 2, invest in 7 ventures, yes, in 8. You do not know what disaster may come. Picture 2 people today. One trades hours for dollars at a 9-to-5 job. When they stop working, the money stops. The other builds systems. They create online courses that sell while they sleep. They invest in dividend stocks that pay quarterly. They build rental properties that generate monthly income. They write books that earn royalties for years. Same 24 hours in a day. Completely different outcomes. Why? Because one is trading time for money. The other built systems that work independently. And this is where most people mess up. They rely on one job, one paycheck, one income source. And when that source dries up, they're broke. They lose their job and their entire world collapses. They get injured and the money stops. The company downsizes and they have nothing to fall back on. Why? Because they put all their eggs in one basket. Think about it. If you lost your job today, how long could you survive? 1 month? 2 months? Solomon built his empire so that even if one revenue stream failed, 6 others were still producing. That's not luck, that's strategy. That's wisdom in action. And if you want to build wealth that lasts, you need to stop chasing one big break and start building multiple systems that generate income while you sleep. Solomon had wealth flowing in, but he didn't hoard it. Secret number 3, he gave strategically. Proverbs 11 verse 24 says, one person gives freely, yet gains even more. Another withholds unduly, but comes to poverty. Solomon didn't give randomly. He gave to build relationships and create alliances. When the Queen of Sheba visited, she brought 4.5 tons of gold. 1 Kings 10 verse 10. Why? Solomon's reputation for wisdom and generosity preceded him. That generosity came back multiplied. Look at how Solomon operated. When he needed timber for the temple, he made a deal with King Hiram of Tyre. 1 Kings 5. He gave Hiram 20,000 cores of wheat and 20,000 baths of olive oil every year. That's strategic giving. He gave to create a partnership that benefited both kingdoms. Hiram got food for his people. Solomon got the best cedar wood in the world. Both won. That's not charity, that's investment. Solomon understood something most people miss. Generosity is currency in the kingdom of relationships. When you give strategically, you create social capital that opens doors money can't buy. You build trust, you build loyalty, you build a network of people who want to see you win because you helped them win first. 2 business owners each make $100,000 in profit their first year. The first hoards everything, doesn't invest in his team, doesn't partner with other businesses, doesn't give to his community. 5 years later, still a one-man show grinding alone. The second gives bonuses to his top employees, partners with complementary businesses, sponsors local events. 5 years later, his best employees recruited their talented friends to join. His business partners sent him referrals. His community sponsorships turned into corporate contracts. He's doing $1 million in revenue. Same starting capital. Different approach to generosity, completely different outcomes. Proverbs 19 verse 17 says, whoever is kind to the poor lends to the Lord and he will reward them. Generosity is investment, and Solomon's strategic generosity is exactly what funded the most expensive project in secret number 4. Without relationships from giving, that project would have been impossible. Secret number 4. Solomon built with excellence, not cheapness. 1 Kings chapter 6 describes the temple Solomon built, 7 years to complete, walls covered in gold, floors made of cypress, every detail perfect. Why? Excellence attracts wealth. Mediocrity repels it. The inner sanctuary was 30 feet by 30 feet by 30 feet, overlaid with pure gold. 600 talents, about 23 tons. The cherubim were 15 feet high, carved from olive wood and covered in gold. The bronze pillars were 27 feet high, every stone cut to exact measurements before arriving. First, Kings 6, verse 7 says, "No hammer or chisel was heard at the temple site. Everything prepared in advance with precision, and here's what will blow your mind." Solomon employed 180,000 workers on this project. First, Kings 5 tells us 70,000 carriers, 80,000 stonecutters, 3,300 foremen. That's the equivalent of building 3 Burj Khalifas simultaneously using only hand tools. And it took 7 years. The organization required to coordinate that many people without modern technology is insane. When the Queen of Sheba saw the temple, saw the organization, saw the quality of everything Solomon built, 1 Kings 10, verse 5 says she was overwhelmed. There was no more spirit in her. She brought him gold, spices, and precious stones. Excellence created wealth. Why? Because excellence demands respect. This is the principle. The quality of what you build determines the quality of what you attract. If you build with excellence, you attract excellence. If you build with mediocrity, you attract poverty. Proverbs 22, verse 29 says, "Do you see someone skilled in their work? They will serve before kings. They will not serve before officials of low rank." Solomon's excellence put him in rooms with queens and emperors. Your excellence will put you in rooms with opportunity. 2 contractors bid on the same housing development. The first cuts costs everywhere. Cheap materials, rushed timeline, minimal craftsmanship. He finishes fast and pockets maximum profit short term. The second uses quality materials, takes time to get details right, trains his crew to excellence, costs more upfront. 5 years later, the first contractor's houses have foundation cracks, leaky roofs, and angry homeowners suing him. No one will hire him. The second contractor's houses are still pristine. Homeowners rave about them. Developers compete to hire him at premium rates. He's booked 3 years out. Excellence created wealth. Mediocrity created lawsuits. But here's the trap. Most people confuse excellence with perfection. They never start because they're waiting for perfect conditions. Solomon didn't wait. He started with what he had and built with excellence every step of the way. He didn't make excuses. He didn't say, "I'll build the temple when I have more resources." He used what he had and built it to the highest standard possible. And that standard attracted more resources. If you're stuck in mediocrity, ask yourself this: are you giving your best effort, or are you doing just enough to get by? Because the market rewards excellence and punishes laziness. You can't half commit to your craft and expect full results. Solomon went all in, and that's why his wealth multiplied. Excellence in building wasn't enough to protect Solomon. You can build excellent systems, but if you fail at secret number 6 and 7, you'll watch it collapse anyway. If this message is challenging you, subscribe to the channel right now, because what's coming in the next 2 secrets will completely shift how you think about money. And I don't want you to miss it. Secret number 5. Solomon controlled his environment ruthlessly. He didn't let everyone into his inner circle. He surrounded himself with the wisest counselors he could find. Proverbs 13, verse 20 says, "Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm." You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If your friends are broke, lazy, and undisciplined, you will stay broke, lazy, and undisciplined. Solomon built a cabinet of experts. Military generals, engineers, traders, prophets, and he listened to them. Think about Solomon's inner circle. He had Nathan the prophet for spiritual guidance. He had Benaiah, commander of his army, for military strategy. He had Zabud, his personal advisor and friend. He had Azariah overseeing his district governors. Each person had a specific role. Each person added value. There were no freeloaders, no distractions, no toxic energy, just focused excellence. Now contrast that with most people today. They keep friends who mock their ambition. They stay in relationships where they're the smartest person in the room. They take advice from broke people about how to get rich. They let negative voices poison their mindset, and then they wonder why they can't break through. 2 college graduates start their careers the same week, same degree, same skills. The first stays friends with his party crew from school. They meet up every weekend, drink, complain about their jobs, mock people who work hard. 10 years pass. He's still in the same entry-level position, still partying, still broke, still blaming the system. The second joined a young professionals group, found a mentor, surrounded himself with people building businesses and careers. Same 10 years. He's a director at his company, launched a successful side business, built a 6-figure net worth. The only difference? Environment. One chose comfort, the other chose growth. Proverbs 12 verse 11 says, "Those who work their land will have abundant food, but those who chase fantasies have no sense." Solomon worked. He didn't waste time. He stayed focused. If you want to build wealth like Solomon, audit your circle. Who are you listening to? Are they helping you grow or holding you back? The people around you will either elevate you or destroy you. Secret number 6. Solomon mastered delayed gratification. He didn't consume everything he earned. He reinvested. He saved. He built reserves. Proverbs 21 verse 20 says, "The wise store up choice food and olive oil, but fools gulp theirs down." 1 Kings 10 verse 14 says the weight of gold Solomon received yearly was 666 talents, about 25 tons per year. And he didn't blow it all. He stored it. 1 Kings 10 verse 16 says he made 200 large shields of hammered gold and 300 small shields. He stockpiled wealth. But get this. 1 Kings 4 verse 22 tells us Solomon's daily food provision was 30 cores of fine flour, 60 cores of meal, 10 fat oxen, 20 pasture-fed cattle, 100 sheep plus deer, gazelles, and choice fowl, enough to feed over 10,000 people every single day. He wasn't living in scarcity, but he also wasn't depleting reserves. He was building wealth while maintaining excellence. That's the difference between looking rich and being rich. Every dollar you spend today is a dollar that can't work for you tomorrow. Every purchase you make is a choice between immediate pleasure and future freedom. Solomon chose freedom. He could have lived in luxury and blown through his wealth in a few years. Instead, he saved, invested, and built reserves that sustained Israel for generations. Here's a reality check. The average person earning $50,000 a year could retire a millionaire by investing just 15% of their income consistently over 40 years. That's $7,500 a year, $625 a month, but they won't do it. Why? Because they'd rather have the new iPhone now than $1 million later. They'd rather look rich than be rich. Solomon chose differently. 2 brothers inherit $25,000 each when their grandmother dies. The first immediately buys a used luxury car he's always wanted. Feels amazing for 6 months. Then the car needs repairs. Insurance is expensive. He's broke again within a year, but now with a depreciating asset and ongoing costs. The second puts his inheritance into an index fund and doesn't touch it, keeps driving his reliable used Honda, lives below his means. 15 years later, the first brother is still working paycheck to paycheck, still broke, sold the car years ago. The second brother's investment grew to over $80,000. He used it as a down payment on a rental property that now generates passive income. Same inheritance. One chose immediate pleasure. One chose future freedom. The Bible says in Proverbs 6 verses 6 through 8, "Go to the ant, you sluggard, consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it stores its provisions in summer and gathers its food at harvest. The ant doesn't consume everything it finds. It saves for winter." Solomon did the same. And that's why his wealth lasted. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, it's not because you don't make enough. It's because you spend everything you make. When the next crisis hits, you'll either have a cushion or fall into debt. But even with all his reserves, all his discipline, all his delayed gratification, Solomon still lost everything. How? Because the enemy of wealth isn't poverty, it's distraction. And secret number 7 reveals the exact distraction destroying your future right now. Secret number 7. Solomon protected his heart from distractions, but eventually he failed, and it cost him everything. 1 Kings chapter 11 tells the story. Solomon married 700 wives and 300 concubines. Those women turned his heart away from God. He started worshiping idols. He abandoned the wisdom that built his empire. Everything collapsed. Think about what that means. 1,000 women. That's not marriage. That's addiction. 1 Kings 11 verse 4 says, "As Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been." The man who had divine wisdom, who built a $2 trillion empire, who kings traveled across continents to hear speak, lost everything because he couldn't control his desires. 1 Kings 11 verse 9 says, "The Lord became angry with Solomon because his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice." God appeared to him twice, gave him everything, and Solomon still lost focus. The consequences were devastating. God told him, "I will most certainly tear the kingdom away from you and give it to one of your subordinates." 1 Kings 11 verse 11. And that's exactly what happened. After Solomon died, his son Rehoboam took the throne. Within weeks, the kingdom split. 10 tribes rebelled, only 2 remained loyal. The United Kingdom David built and Solomon expanded shattered into civil war. All because Solomon let his heart wander. All because he thought he could handle the distractions. Let me give you a modern parallel. I know a man who built a tech company from scratch, turned it into a $50 million business in 7 years. He did everything right. Systems, wisdom, excellence. But then he started chasing women, started partying, started believing his own hype. Within 3 years, the company collapsed. Partners left, investors pulled out, employees lost trust. He lost everything. Not because he lacked skill, but because he stopped guarding his heart. You can do everything right. You can build wealth. You can create systems. But if you don't guard your heart, you'll lose it all. Proverbs 4, verse 23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Solomon stopped guarding his heart. He let lust, pride, and distraction take over. This is the mistake destroying your finances right now. It's not that you don't know what to do. It's that you're distracted. You're chasing pleasure instead of purpose. You're focused on what feels good instead of what builds wealth. You're letting emotions drive your decisions instead of wisdom, and it's costing you everything. What's distracting you from building wealth? Is it relationships that drain you? Habits that waste your time? Entertainment that numbs your ambition? Whatever it is, cut it off. Solomon's mistake was thinking he could handle it. He couldn't, and neither can you. Guard your heart or lose everything. Solomon built a $2 trillion empire by following 7 secrets. He sought wisdom first. He built systems, not monuments. He gave strategically. He built with excellence. He controlled his environment. He mastered delayed gratification. And he protected his heart. But in the end, he failed at the last one. And it destroyed everything he built. You don't need to be a king to apply these principles. You need wisdom, discipline, and focus. You need to stop chasing quick money and start building systems. You need to stop consuming everything and start investing. You need to cut off toxic relationships and surround yourself with people who challenge you to grow. And above all, guard your heart. The Bible says in Matthew 6, verse 21, "Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Solomon's treasure was wisdom at first. Then it became wealth. Then it became women. And when his treasure shifted, his heart followed. Don't let that happen to you. Keep your treasure in the right place. Build with wisdom. Stay disciplined and guard your heart. Before you go, I want you to do something. Right now, leave a comment with this declaration. I will seek wisdom first. I will build systems. I will guard my heart. This is not just a comment. This is a commitment, a declaration to heaven that you're done playing small, that you're ready to build wealth the way Solomon did, with wisdom, with discipline, with focus. Solomon's story doesn't end with his failure. It ends with a warning. Ecclesiastes 12, verse 13. "Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind." Solomon wrote that after he lost everything, after he realized that wealth without wisdom is meaningless, after he learned that success without God is empty. Don't make his mistake. Build wealth, but build it on the right foundation. Seek God first. Follow his principles, and you'll build an empire that lasts, not just for you, but for generations to come. Watch another video here to keep learning. And remember, wealth is not about how much you make. It's about how much wisdom you apply. Solomon proved that, and so can you.